guys, it's your old pal Tony Giles TG here, welcoming you once again back into the record room, and I hope everybody is staying safe out there whilst being able to satiate their desire for record collecting. I know I've been buying a ton of stuff online recently, and luckily enough I kind of had a record collector epiphany not too long ago where I realized I needed to get rid of some of the things I owned that I wasn't really listening to, because the record room is a set space. The room isn't getting any larger, and the amount of records I can put in it, well, that's going to be a finite number. So I've been going through, taking some things out that I don't want, putting them on Discogs, eBay, passing them on to friends, and then filling those gaps in with things that I know I'm going to want to have or want to listen to, you know, for the foreseeable future. And who knows, maybe some of the new arrivals I get will one day fly away to a new home. But some of the picks I've got on this episode are exactly from that kind of switch in my mentality. Some things I've been meaning to pick up for a long time, and I finally got around to doing so. And the first record I want to talk about this week, this is actually a reissue, which ordinarily, when it comes to buying an older album, and this one came out in the early 90s originally, I will try and track down an original copy, and unless it's kind of crazy price prohibitive, an original version is where I will tend to kind of go towards. I don't know why, you know, there's nothing wrong with reissues. There are some fantastic reissues out there. In fact, you know, I bought a reissue, so I have nothing against the reissue market, but it's just, there's something about original presses that I genuinely do enjoy. However, the record I want to talk about is the classic from Cannibal Corpse, Butchered at Birth. Now, as you can see, it looks like the original Butchered at Birth cover, because it is, and on the back. Same as the original sleeve, but what you may notice is this obi down the side. And for those of you that are unaware and collect records from the Orient, it's obi, not obi. It's a word, I believe it means sash. And I learned this the hard way by someone correcting me from saying obi all the time. So it's obi, not obi. But anyway, this is the Nessie Media reissue of Cannibal Corpse's Butchered at Birth. And now Nessie Media are based in China, and essentially what they do is they take classic metal albums and they reissue them, but they press them to like a really, really high quality, a really high standard. They do this mainly with classic metal albums, and they work heavily with Metal Blade Records. So there's Cannibal Corpse, and a ton of other guys on that label, but they do also issue their own versions of new material as well. The new Mayhem album came out through Nessie, and the new Alcé album, which I talked about a little while ago, that came out through Nessie as well. And essentially what they do is, Nessie, by the way, is Northeast Steel Industry. They take the original album and they do a perfect facsimile, but they just improve on the quality. I mean, the sleeve itself, you may or may not be able to tell there, but it's a very nice textured sleeve, but it's really thick. It feels quality when you're holding it in your hands. It feels expensive. It feels really nice. And inside the package itself, you get the original, or reproduction of the original sleeve, which was lyrics and some credits, but the record doesn't actually come in the sleeve, which is, I prefer it when records are shipped that way, but this actually just comes inside the record sleeve, but then the record is shipped, or the package itself turns up, and the record actually comes in its own polylined sleeve. So you essentially get two inner sleeves with the record. You get one that the record actually sits in, and one for, I guess you could put the record in the other one. I don't know why you would want to, because this is a really nice inner sleeve. I know this might sound crazy, this is a nice inner sleeve, but this is a nice textured paper inner sleeve, and it's polylined on the inside, so you are basically using an anti-static sleeve. So that is a good thing. And the record itself, it bears the original Metal Blade Records logo, but this comes on 180 gram black vinyl. And obviously at the time, 180 gram when this was released just wasn't a thing. So you get this really nice thick slab of black wax, and the sound is incredible. I own a few Cannibal Corpse albums that I've bought kind of from their recent catalogue, and they sound great, they really do, but I think they all come on coloured vinyl. And Nessie themselves, they do issue things on coloured vinyl. They do some really cool and crazy designs. And I've heard that the sound quality, even on these weird kind of crazy coloured versions, is first class. But for me, you know, I am a black vinyl purist. I've said that before many times. To get an album like this on black vinyl and just you put it on and it's whisper quiet and it's a wall of noise coming at you, which, I mean, it's a Cannibal Corpse album, that's kind of what it's going to sound like. But as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to reissues of like Cannibal Corpse and bands of that nature, I am definitely going to start ordering more from Nessie Media. And I will say this, it's a little bit strange ordering from them, because you go to their site, you order, you get your kind of PayPal email that says you've purchased this, and then nothing. No information on when it ships or anything like that. You just kind of hope that it turns up. And obviously with what's happening right now with the pandemic, mail is taking a little bit longer. And I think it was probably around 3 weeks from China to the UK, which, I mean, I don't order from China very often, so I don't really know how long a normal package would take, but I mean, 3 weeks doesn't seem crazy. The cost of postage, I don't remember it being fantastically high. It was certainly less than the record. And when it turned up, it was so wonderfully packaged. It came in a really big, thick mailer that was then, the record itself was wrapped in like a foam outer layer, and then there was cardboard in there as well, and then the record, it comes in its own kind of plastic sleeve that has a sticker on it as well. So you are getting something that is clearly designed for vinyl fans. This isn't just for somebody that's gonna, oh, you know, I'll pick up a Cannibal Corpse Butchered at Birth reissue, you know, from my local record store. Now these are records clearly made by record fans, and it really shows. So if you are in the mood for some old school Metal Blade reissues, but you're looking for something just that little bit higher quality, I would definitely say check out Nessie Media. I know I will certainly be picking up a ton more in the near future. Now, many moons ago, when your old pal TG was the young pal TG, I used to frequent the rock clubs and the metal scene of London quite frequently. In fact, I was out pretty much every night of the week, and one thing led to another, and I ended up working kind of in that area, DJing at various things, and club nights, festivals, that kind of a thing. And at the time it was all CD based. There was no vinyl DJs or records, just they weren't really being pressed at the time as well. You know, CD was king at the time. We're talking kind of late 90s, early 2000s. And to be honest, some of that music terrifies me today, that I used to listen to some of these things. And it's not that I'm embarrassed of my past musical choices. It's not that. It's just there are things that I used to listen to that I just don't really have any need to listen to anymore. Or if I do, I can go and hunt around for a CD, or I can listen to it on a digital platform. But there are some things that I used to listen to quite heavily on CD that I would like to own now on vinyl. And over the years, I've been trying to pick things up, but the few vinyl pressings that did happen of the records I'm looking for from that era, they are like crazy expensive sometimes. I mean, back a couple of episodes ago, I talked about the Life of Agony album, River Runs Red, and it wasn't super expensive, that record, but it was way more expensive than a regular album. It's never, the reissue of it that has been out is now more expensive than the original, which is kind of bonkers. However, I don't mind paying the money if I can find the record, but sometimes, you know, it does get hard. One of the records I was looking for quite a while was the Archangel EP, Prayers Upon Deaf Ears. And for those of you that don't know, Archangel are a Belgian hardcore metalcore outfit. It's hard to, I mean, it's heavy music, but it's more kind of in a hardcore vein, but with like real thrashy guitars. And I've tried to buy this a couple of times, and there's a picture disc version and there's some other versions as well. And unfortunately, I was never able to track a copy down, order it, get it, and, you know, be happy with it. And it just kind of went on a list of, oh, if I ever see it, I'm going to go and track it down. And well, lo and behold, a little while ago, I just happened to be cruising around online. Archangel, Prayers Upon Deaf Ears, in my hands, in my house, in my record room, where it will now live forever and ever. Yes, this was reissued by GSR Music, I think in 2019 on, I think it was 3 or 4 different colors. And I happened to pick up the clear vinyl version because that was the version that I actually found this on Juno.co.uk, which is a site that I buy a ton of great stuff from. They don't really cater to one genre. They do tons of soundtrack stuff. They do metal, they do pop, they do rock, they do dance. They do a lot of good stuff. And I just happened to be on there searching for something else, and this popped up and I thought, no, it can't be. And I ordered it and here it is. And I cannot tell you how happy I was when this arrived. And ordinarily, I'm not a huge fan of clear vinyl because there's something about the sound that kind of doesn't sit right with me. But I played this and I listened to this at ear-splitting levels, and the years rolled away. The first track on this EP, Within the Walls of Babylon, it actually opens with an orchestral piece from Hellraiser 3. So you get these big, this big sweeping epic intro. There's trumpets and it literally sounds like the gates of hell are opening. And then it goes into this blistering hardcore metal song. And it just, even thinking about it now, it really makes me happy. This is one of those songs that if you're a 15-year-old kid and you want to annoy your parents, you play Archangel. Trust me, it will work. It will really get the job done. And this is actually a really sweet reissue. GSR Music, I don't know a whole lot about them, but I will definitely be on the lookout for some more of their reissues, especially if they're doing things like Archangel. So you get the album cover as standard, and then you get a nice 12x12 insert, which includes the lyrics and some notes. And as I mentioned, this is on clear vinyl. It's standard weight. I'd say it's probably 140 grams, something along those lines. But it just sounds cool. You know, vinyl color really doesn't mean a whole lot to me. It's more about the content in the grooves than the color. I've said that before and I'll probably say it again. I love this. And I was so happy to find this as well. And even as an EP, I think it's 6 tracks. I would have been happy to pay, I don't know, standard LP price, maybe a little bit more just to finally have it. But I think it cost me about £15. So for me, £15 to relive some of my younger days memories is money well spent, and I'm so pleased to finally have this. If you've never checked out Archangel, I urge you, go online now, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to your music, check out the track Within the Walls of Babylon, and yeah, just thank me later. Okay, I've calmed myself down now after thinking about Archangel, and I'm going to change things now. As I like to do here, I like to go from one thing to something completely different. And I have posted this album before on my personal Instagram, which if you would like to follow me on Instagram, you are more than welcome. All I do is show pictures of my records. It's nothing more interesting than that. If you enjoy the record room and you want to see more pictures or more of my record collection, you can follow me at The Vinyl Bastard on Instagram. But I posted this before and I got some questions. I got some questions asking me what the heck is that? Because I'll be honest with you, this is one of those records that has a cover that once seen, you will probably never forget because it's potentially the stuff of nightmares. I listened to the album based solely on the cover. I saw an article in a magazine, I saw a picture of the album cover, and I thought, I need to know what that sounds like because it's weird. It's weird and I'm curious. And I listened to the album and I was so blown away with how cool it was that I instantly went online and I grabbed a copy, and the album is Soft Hair. Yeah, I mean, just words fail me at times. Conan Moccasin and Sam Dust, they make up Soft Hair, and they're very talented musicians in their own right, but they came together and they worked on these tracks. Now, I think this came out in, where's the date? 2016. Okay, so I picked this album up last year. 2019. So it was only 3 years old by the time I picked it up. I think a majority of the tracks on here were recorded in like 2008 or something crazy like that from what I read. They're not new tracks. But the music on here, there's one track in particular, Lying Has to Stop, which does have a very amusing music video, which I would suggest everyone check out. And in fact, if I was going to say to you, there's one song you need to hear, Lying Has to Stop would be it. And this is out on Domino Records. It comes on, I believe it's 180 gram vinyl, and it's a single disc, but you do get this. Can you call that lovely? I don't know if you can call that lovely, but yeah. The record itself, so what does it sound like? So Soft Hair is kind of like some of the quirky elements of Prince. So when Prince was recording as one of his alter egos that he referred to as Camille, it was kind of like he pitched his voice really high. Kind of sounds a bit like that. It's definitely more wonky pop than anything. You've got some lo-fi hip hop beats, some singing, some kind of mumblecore in there as well. It's almost hard to define other than I think it's fantastic. I listen to this album so often now that it's almost getting into, you know, desert island discs territory for me. Maybe not top 10 at the minute, but it's definitely hovering around there. And because we live in a wonderful digital age now, I would say if you are intrigued by this cover, and how could you not be? Look at it. Have you ever seen anything like this? It's just weird, but I like it. I like it a lot. Definitely go and check it out. I would highly recommend everyone check it out. And if you're gonna listen to just one song, definitely listen to Lying Has to Stop. But the album itself, it's a single disc, as I said, comes on, I think it's 180 gram vinyl. You get a gatefold sleeve. It also comes with a poster as well. You get a small amount of information and then another nightmare-inducing picture of Conan and Sam. So, depending on what you're into, whatever floats your boat, you've got that. If you want to put that up, you are more than welcome. And the album, I believe there's only one version on vinyl. I think it's on CD as well. And it's just a nice big, thick slab of wax. It's a nice big, thick slab of black wax. And, you know, it sounds great. It sounds absolutely perfect. Domino, they do great stuff. And I just love this record. I love talking about records that I love and turning people onto them. I had some great messages about the band Night School when I talked about their album Blush. So hopefully some of you out there will check out Soft Hair, and you will also, you'll pick up what I'm putting down. Let me just say that. Now, have you ever had an album where you kind of listen to it, think, oh yeah, that wasn't bad. You kind of move on and you just forget about it, or it just, you know, doesn't really feature, nothing draws your focus. But there's something about it that it gets like a hook in you, or it starts off like a little itch, and then the itch gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And at first you're like, what is that? What is this? That's the kind of thing that happened to me with this next record. The record in question is Ritual by Skeleton Beach. Now, I actually have the deluxe version here, which is awesome. I'm going to show you all of it, but I have to talk about the album first. So this was recommended to me by Ben over at Two-Headed Dog, who's always turning me on to some good stuff. And Ritual, Skeleton Beach, is Gene Priest, who's done tons of great stuff. He's insanely talented. He's also a super nice guy as well. I was fortunate enough to meet him last year at MondoCon. And I'm going to check out albums that people I trust, or anyone that recommends something to me. If I think I'm going to enjoy it, I will check it out. And I listened to this album. I have to admit, I do love the artwork. I think it's really cool. I listened to it and I thought, okay, yeah, that was cool. And then I moved on. But there was something about it that just kept kind of drawing me back to it, where I'd listen to like one or two tracks. And yeah, maybe at first, I wasn't really sold on it, but yeah, upon further listening, you know, I think there's something to this, to the point where I became like obsessed with this record, where I was listening to it all the time, and I was listening to songs that I was familiar with, and then they would just sound different, and they kind of took on the life of their own, and I was just, man, is this record possessed? Like, what is this? And it overwhelmed me how I'd gone from, you know, it's all right, to this album. Like, this album's amazing. This album is just genius at work. And I was just so blown away. And luckily enough, I did manage to score the deluxe edition. So you get the album in its regular sleeve. The album comes on very nice, again, 180 gram black vinyl. In fact, barely got any colored vinyl on this episode, which is strange, but also very cool. So you get the album on this thick slab. The album comes in this amazing printed folder, which, I mean, I love this artwork. I believe the artwork is by Hauntlove, who again is a pretty cool artist in his own right. Musician, I should say, is an amazing artist. You get the album in this deluxe, kind of this fold out envelope, and it also comes with this super cool print of the album cover, which I love this image of this woman wiping away a tear. I think that's gorgeous. I absolutely adore that. In fact, I may actually have to frame this. I don't really like separating the artwork from releases, but I love this. And on top of that, and this is just such a cool thing, it also comes with this little canvas bag that has a couple of crystals inside. Now, you know, I'm not one for that kind of a thing. It's not that I just don't really have any interest in it, but you know, if you do, fair play to you. But as a package, it just worked so well for me, and I was so thrilled to get it all together. And I wouldn't say that the extra packaging has kind of boosted my enjoyment of the album, but what it has done is, knowing how much I love this album, it stopped me hunting around online and paying a ridiculous amount of money to get it. I will say that, so I'm very grateful about that. But the album itself, it's an electronic album. When I say something's like an electronic album, when you say it's electronic music, it casts such a wide net. Well, it's not synthwave, it's not synth pop, it's not like soundtrack music, it's not soundscape, it's not mindfulness music. It's not ambient, it's not dark ambient. It's kind of, the album is an experience. There's a listening experience, which I've talked about before. I talked about on the last episode, where I was talking about music that takes you on journeys. Ritual, it didn't do that for me. I'm not gonna say it took me on a journey, but it made me feel a certain way. It tapped into emotions that I didn't understand or didn't know I was feeling at the time. And for me, I think that's why I kept going back to it, because it was kind of like a little tap on the shoulder, like a little, you know, kind of an itch. And I haven't stopped going back to it. I've had the album now since the tail end of last year. I can't stop going back to it. It's definitely something I'd recommend to everybody. Even if you're not a strict kind of electronic music fan, you don't have to be. It's not all blips and bloops and banging drums. It's not that at all. It really isn't. It's something I'd recommend to everybody. And Skeleton Beach, I mean, Gene, as I said before, he's insanely talented. And if you are yet to hear that, I couldn't recommend it enough. That, alongside Soft Hair, I would definitely say, if you go away from this episode and check out anything, definitely check out those two. One of the things I genuinely love about the Record Room is the diversity I'm able to cover when I'm talking about things that are in my record collection. It would be very easy to just, well, I'm just going to talk about metal on this episode, I'm just going to talk about soundtracks, I'm just going to talk about electronic music. But I don't want to do that necessarily. I want to be as diverse as possible, because we'll have different music tastes, and there may only be one thing on this episode that you feel the need to check out. But if you check it out and you fall in love with it, well, I mean, that's awesome. And my next release, this is a cassette. There is, I think this is number 5, album 5. I believe album 1 and 2 are now on vinyl. through the issuing label, which is Out of Season. And the cassette itself, this is Fief. I think it's Fief. It could be Fief, but I believe it's Fief, F-I-E-F. And essentially what this is, there is a genre of music known as dungeon synth. And some people, I have seen them, they've scoffed at that dungeon synth. Oh, that's stupid. For those of you that don't know, dungeon synth is essentially atmospheric synth that you could imagine if you were to play like a game of Dungeons and Dragons, or kind of if you're reading any fantasy novels, that kind of a thing. If you imagine that having a soundtrack, well, that's almost what dungeon synth is. If you go back to the early days of the first releases from Mortis, they're these big, long, sprawling, epic pieces that, yeah, if you close your eyes, you imagine yourself in a forest, that kind of a thing. I personally am a huge, huge fan of that. And in the last 4 or 5 years, the dungeon synth scene has kind of exploded now. So many great musicians and so many releases, primarily on cassette, but there are a ton more coming on vinyl. And we've also had older releases reissued on vinyl, come with new artwork, that kind of a thing. So, you know, it's a great time to jump into the dungeon synth scene, especially if you don't own a cassette player, but you know, you've got a record player. Anyway, Fief, I'm going to keep saying Fief now. This is his, or their 5th release. I think it's one guy. This is out now on Out of Season, which is a fantastic label. I actually interviewed Kyle, who runs Out of Season, many moons ago on one of my previous podcasts, and I'll leave a link below because he does talk about the early days of dungeon synth and kind of goes into a bit more detail on what dungeon synth is. But essentially, Fief's music is almost like medieval lute relaxation music. It's really hard to describe. It's either you love it or you don't. And I've played some Fief before on podcasts, or I've turned people onto it, and some have just, this is no. Others are like, I love this. This is fantastic. And they've gone out and bought as many as they can. I mean, I have the first, my cassettes live over there, that's why I'm looking off the camera. I have his first 4 albums. For some reason, I don't own number 2. Thought I did, but I don't. But I do have 2 versions of number 1. So I'm a big fan of this guy. I really, really enjoy this stuff. If there's any downfall to this, it's that it's not longer. I want longer, I want more. The albums are professionally produced on cassettes, as always. Out of Season always do a tremendous job on their production. And you do, if you fold out the J card, it's very simple. It just comes with the names of the tracks and the number of the album, which this one is number 5. And I have a sneaky feeling that his next album will be called number 6. And I like numbered albums, I just do. But this is brilliant anytime, night or day. But if you are a person that likes to relax to ambient sounds, give this a try. You know, at night time, I do tend to listen to artists that focus on meditation and sleep kind of a things. You know, I have a young child, so sleep isn't something that I'm able to do all the time. But this kind of music is very, very relaxing. Very, very relaxing. And I would recommend it to everybody. I really would. I mean, I wouldn't be talking about it if I wasn't going to recommend it. And as I said, this is out with the Out of Season label, but I actually picked it up from Two-Headed Dog. And remember, if you use the code RECORDROOM, you will get 15% off your order at checkout. So if you're curious, you could pick up a copy and you wouldn't have to pay full price for it. But trust me, if you like dragons, if you like Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, knights, ogres, demons, like seriously, if you're into that, please check out Fief. I promise you, you will probably enjoy it. Now, we're almost at the end of another episode of The Record Room, but I know what you're all thinking. No soundtracks on this episode? Well, I do have something of a soundtrack to round out the episode, and I also want to let you guys know that starting very, very soon, in fact, patrons can get this episode next week, we'll be launching a sister show dedicated solely to soundtracks. That's right, the Record Room Presents Talking Tracks will make its debut next week. And on that show, I'll be talking about nothing but soundtracks. As much as I try to distance myself from talking about soundtracks, the truth is I love film music. I always have, I always will. I love soundtracks on vinyl, and I will be talking about and sharing bits and pieces from my collection, talking about new releases. Pretty much the same thing we do here on the Record Room, but it will be soundtrack focused. It won't happen super regular, it's not going to be like every other week, that kind of a thing, but when I have something to talk about, it will have its own dedicated show. And yes, there will still be soundtracks in the regular episodes of the Record Room, just in case you don't want to OD on soundtracks. But we have come to the end of this episode, and I want to share something that puts a big smile on my face whenever I spin it, for a couple of reasons. And that is, can't believe I'm saying this, but already a big smile on my face. Paw Patrol! That's right, the Paw Patrol 7-inch EP. This is out now through my good buddies, Ross's label, Enjoy the Tunes. Now, Paw Patrol, you may be thinking, TG, you've spoken about Cannibal Corpse. You've spoken about Belgian hardcore. You've spoken about medieval dungeon synth. And now you're talking about Paw Patrol, and I would say, yes, I am. I am indeed. And you know what's great about this? It's freaking awesome. I don't know if many of you out there have children, or if you've ever seen Paw Patrol. Essentially, it's a cartoon show about, well, you know, a group of dogs that all have vocations and, you know, help. I've only just started watching Paw Patrol with my daughter, so I'm kind of new to it, but the music in the show, it's so fun. It's essentially just pop punk, but with a canine flavoured tinge to it, I guess you could say. That the opening song could be Bowling for Soup or one of those kind of bands. It's so much fun. And I like music that can put a smile on my face, and whenever I listen to this now, whenever I play this for my daughter, she smiles. So for me, you know, like as a dad and a record collector, this is super cool. And I'm actually, this is obviously, I'm going to give this to my daughter when she's of age, and she can have this and she can listen to this. But for the time being, this will live in Daddy's record collection, and I will play it. This is available now from Enjoy the Ride Records, and as I said, it's a 7-inch EP, and it comes on pretty cool white vinyl. This was originally going to be a Record Store Day release, but obviously with the pandemic that's happening, Record Store Day has had a little bit of a reshuffling. I know there are, I think it's 3 drops now that will happen with Record Store Day, and obviously I will cover more Record Store Day releases over time. But Paw Patrol, I know you probably think right now that I'm off on another planet, but trust me, we can all use a little bit of fun and levity right now, and Paw Patrol is definitely giving that to me. Well, there you have it, folks. You can stick a fork in me because I am done. Thank you, as always, to all of our patrons out there. I really do appreciate you donating your funds to help keep the Record Room on the air and keep us doing what we do best. And if you're watching this show on YouTube, why not give us a thumbs up and subscribe while you're there. Stay gold, spin those blackest circles, and always remember to wash those hands.